Responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
All right, next one, slow.
He didn't hold any gun to anybody's head. Just the fact that he conveyed a sense of authority. Roughly 60-65% of the people went all the way to the top of the shock board.
450 volts. That's it.
Now continue using the last switch on the board, please. The 450 switch for each wrong answer. Continue, please.
I'm not getting no answer. Don't the man's health mean anything?
Whether the learner likes it or not, we must...
But he might be dead in there.
Milgram made the point, I think very effectively, that the Nazis weren't all a bunch of psychopaths at Belsen and Dachau, that you could staff a death camp from the middle class in New Haven.
Well, who was actually pushing the switch?
I was. But he kept insisting. I told him no, but he said he got to keep going.
What kind of obedience would Milgram get today if he were to do the experiment today?
Probably about the same.
Probably about the same. Why?
I don't know. I think people are just inherently obedient.
It just really shows like how far human beings will go to appease what they perceive to be an authority figure.
Milgram has identified one of the constants, one of the universals of social behavior. The readiness to obey authority cuts across time. It's a constant. The other outstanding and distinctive thing about the obedience experiment is how much it has and keeps on permeating contemporary culture and thought. It's still with us in very, very important ways.
A series of strange events recently confirmed Milgram's theories about obedience. Targeting fast food restaurants across the country, a con man telephoned restaurant managers and convinced them to strip search and sometimes sexually abuse their employees. The mystery is not in the con man, but in the victims. Why would they obey?
This person was so convincing, people saw him as a legitimate authority. I think we have probably the closest thing that we have to Milgram experiment today in these strip searches.
The most famous of these incidents took place at a McDonald's in Mount Washington, Kentucky.
There was a videotape security camera had filmed. We didn't hear what the instructions were, but due to the actions that were had taken place, what the victim was doing in the video and stuff, it was pretty evident what each instruction was.
An anonymous caller pretending to be a police officer told the assistant manager that an employee had stolen some money.
He said, "I'm Officer Scott," and he said, "I'm with the police department. I'm investigating a complaint." It went directly from a theft into a drug thing. So I was asked to search her clothing. You know, he would tell me, take her shoes, click them, take her shirt, shake it out. I know how it seems to people, but you weren't on the phone with him. The man has convinced 70 to 100 other places the very same thing. He's very good at what he does. Very good. He sounded like a police officer. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
He was getting some kind of satisfaction by being an authoritative figure and telling people what to do, and then realizing by the phone conversation that they were actually doing what he said.
He's telling me that I needed to get someone to sit with her while he goes and gets somebody to come in to pick her up.
The caller then asked the manager if she was married or had a boyfriend. She said that she had a fiance. Then the caller asked if she could have her fiance come to the restaurant and assist her with the strip search of the victim.
He says, well, why don't you have him come up and sit there? I mean, you can trust him. So I called Wes, my fiance. We were going to get married, and asked him if he would come up.
The manager goes about doing her duties of running the restaurant and leaves the fiance there in the office, and then the caller starts giving instructions over the phone of things that he wants the victim to do and what he wants the fiance to tell her to do. Have her remove her apron and instructed to do jumping jacks and jog in place and several more things. She was still in high school. The kind of person she was actually graduating the top 10 in her class. and she was scared of being in trouble with the police, so she sort of just went along and did whatever the fiance told her to do because she didn't want to be in trouble for anything.
During all this time, I'm working. I'm running the floor, I'm getting change, and then when I would walk into the office to get the change or whatever I had to get, Wes would be sitting where he was when I left, and she was sitting where she was, and no one said anything.
After over 2.5 hours, Summer's fiancé, Walter Nix, did something that was unthinkable. Complying with the instructions of the caller, he ordered the employee to perform a sexual act.
There's no way that I could take away from what happened to her. A lot of people, you know, look at you and go, well, you're a nut, you should be strung up. I've had it even said to me. But it's really hard because you went there.
The Milgram study showed us that most people would do that. If you structure the environment such that, you provide all the authority and the commands, just anybody might do this.
But I do think this sounds worse.
You think this is worse than what Milgram did?
With the Milgram, there was somebody sitting right there and instructing them. If they hesitated, they could turn, and then somebody could encourage them, and they could sort of maybe psychologically leave that responsibility on that other person. But in this case, the police officer's on the phone. He's not standing there.
Exactly. It's a very good point.
You look back on it and you say, I wouldn't have done it, but unless you're put in that situation at that time, how do you know what you would do? You don't. You don't.
Over 60 other people did exactly as Donna Summers did. Why is it so easy for us to obey orders even when we know they are wrong? Why are we willing to inflict pain on others if someone else takes responsibility?
There's nothing more difficult for people to violate a social structure which all participants have initially accepted. It reminds me of a situation that once occurred in South America. I was in an airplane. The pilot came into the plane. He was drunk. He was reeling toward the cockpit. Passengers looked at each other, but no one got up. No one said to the pilot, "You're drunk, we can't fly in this plane." There are a set of pressures that keep you in the role that you've initially accepted.